Tuning in to yet another tutorial. As usual, all the steps that I'm gonna do in this tutorial and every single tool that I'm gonna be using will be linked in the description down below, along with our website fadedculture.co in case y'all want to buy up some merch. And you know, we're always gonna have to comb the hair into its neutral position. I usually use the wide side of the comb if the hair is a lot longer and a lot thicker, but for this scenario, since his hair is not that long, we're gonna use the fine side of the comb. Again, just combing it into its neutral position. Make sure that you are combing according to the cowlick. Our point here is to get the hair to just lay as natural as possible. Now with my number 7 guard, like I mentioned in the intro, lever completely closed, we're going to start going over the top. Make sure that you are cutting against the grain for a consistent length. And you always want to keep a comb in your opposite hand when you're cutting the top to then reset it and then go over it a few times. So like I mentioned, guys, go ahead and dust them off, reset the hair, and go over it 2 to 3 times. I always go over the top 2 to 3 times because I want to make sure that it is consistent and I don't have a lot of frizz sticking out. Now with my number 2 guard, lever completely closed, I'm gonna start cleaning up the sides. And it is essential, guys, that you do clean up the sides if the hair is a bit longer. That way when you come in and set your guidelines, it's gonna be a lot cleaner and a lot easier to see. So just stay relatively low with this number 2 and go all around the head. Now, starting at that temple peak area, we're going to create our first guideline and work our way back. I'm going to slightly drop it as we approach the back of the ear, starting with no guard, lever completely closed. Make sure that you are easy with the wrist and flicking out as you approach the top of your guideline, guys. And this is why I said it's always good to debulk so I can then easily see my first initial guideline. And yes, my clippers are 0 gap. There will be a video linked in the description down below as well, so y'all can see how we 0 gap our clippers, as I think it's very important that y'all all 0 gap y'all's clippers. It makes a huge difference. So yeah, go ahead and take this guideline all around. Just make sure that you end up at that same temple peak area on the opposite side. And go over your guidelines as many times as you need to, guys. The point here is to get them as clean as possible the first time. Again, just view him from the front to reassure that your guidelines align. Now with no guard still, we're going to open up that lever completely and make our second guideline. Make sure that it is running parallel to the one underneath, and this guideline is about a finger's width. So yeah, go ahead and take that same guideline all around. Again, guys, just make sure that it is running parallel to the one underneath to ensure a consistent fade. Now with my number 1 guard, lever still completely open, we're going to continue the process, making our third guideline. Again, it's going to be about a finger's width. Make sure that you are flicking out as you approach the top of the guideline, and just go ahead and take that all around the head. And it is important, guys, just like we keep a comb on our opposite hand when we're trimming the top, I like to keep a brush when I'm fading the sides, so I can then clean the canvas after every few strokes. As you can see, I am flicking now. I slowed it down a bit so you can see the wrist motion. To continue the process, we're going to use a number 2, lever still completely open. And again, just come straight up out from the parietal ridge. There's no reason to dig this in, as you will start creating more of a faux hawk look. You are going to notice that the only thing that's going to change are the guards. The lever is going to stay completely open as I'm setting up the canvas with my guidelines. And for those who are curious on how I have my clipper never get hot or overheat on me, is every time I'm changing out the guards or even doing small brush strokes, I'm turning off the clipper. I found that those few seconds of having the clipper off really help. Now with my number 3 guard, lever still open like I mentioned, just continue the process. And if you were initially very light and easy with that number 2, you won't see a guideline in between these 2 guards. And finally, guys, a number 4, lever still completely open. This is going to be the last guard that I use. And this is always the last guard that I use, guys. No matter how long the hair is on top, anything after a number 4, I usually just use clipper over comb. And I can't stress it enough, guys, to be easy with your wrists. I know when I first started, I don't know why I had the intention that applying more pressure into the client is going to erase these guidelines. But no, definitely not. That is never the case. Just let the clipper do all the work. If you need to adjust your lever, then do so. By now, you should have the first guideline that we created with the 0, second that we created with the half, and the third that we created with the number 1 guard lever completely open. We're going to start with that top one and work our way down. Using my 1.5 guard, we're going to close the lever just slightly, putting it into a 3/4 position. It's somewhere in between halfway and fully open, and we're going to start attacking that top guideline. Now to work on the second guideline coming down, I'm going to use my half guard, and we're going to leave the lever in that 3/4 position. Again, guys, this 3/4 position is probably only going to work if your clippers are 0 gap, just like mine's. So go ahead and take that up just a bit. And this step in particular is creating a faint line right above it, as you can see right here. But do not take this step any higher, as we will come back right now with my 1 guard and remove that line. So like I mentioned, now with my number 1 guard, we're going to leave the lever still though in that 3/4 position, and we're going to attack that line that the half guard created. As you can see, I'm using mainly the corners of the clipper to ensure that I don't take the fade up any higher than I need to. Take your time with all of this, guys. If y'all are new to the channel, y'all are gonna see that I'm a huge advocate of taking your time. All my haircuts take anywhere from 45 to 60 minutes. If you are being told to rush your haircuts because the more haircuts you can do in a day, the more money, I don't believe in that at all. I believe in the complete opposite. I believe every client is your walking billboard, so take your time, try to get the haircut as detailed as possible, and you'll see that they will be stopped out in public and be asked who cut their hair. So just take your time with it all, guys. And finally, for the last guideline that we created with the 0, we're going to come in with a 3-step process, starting with the lever closed, then we're going to open it halfway, and then open it completely. I'm going to use that 3-step process just on this right side so I can focus slowly on this right side, as this last line is very tedious, so I want to take my time and give it as much attention to detail as possible. So second, I'm opening it halfway. And this is a rule of thumb, guys. Something I did want to mention. I don't always start with the lever closed and attack it with the lever closed. Sometimes I open it just slightly and then follow that with halfway and finally lever completely open. And finally here, the lever is completely open. Again, using mainly the corners of the clipper so I don't take the fade up any higher than I need to. And now I'm going to use that 3-step process and focus just on the back side of the head. Again, starting with the lever close, here opening it halfway, and finally lever completely open. Now to focus on the left side of the head. Again, just that 3-step process and take your time with it. And we're all done pretty much with the fade, guys. Now to do any touch-up work, I'm going to use my half guard and I'm going to put lever play. I'm going to say lever play because this is going to vary from client to client and from one side of the head to another. And here I'm just going to come in and try to attack any dark spots that I see. For this last step, guys, I suggest that you step back or look at him from the mirror, because sometimes we get caught up in looking at the fine little details from the front and we can't see the picture as a whole. So step back and try to see if you can clean up anything a bit better. Now using my trimmer in a forward position just to get a lot closer to the scout, and then go ahead and remove that faint line that creates. And yes, my trimmers are zero gapped as well, but again guys, the video is in the description down below on how we zero gap our clippers. You need to make sure that you are zero gapping them properly and testing them in your forearm to make sure that you're not scratching or pulling hair. As you can see, there's a faint line right here, and I created that by using the trimmer in that forward position that you see right here. And that faint line is going to be used as a guideline for our electric shaver. So yeah, like I mentioned, that faint line is going to be the guideline for the electric shaver. So go ahead and just take your electric shaver up to that faint line, and when you approach that faint line, I want you to use your electric shaver as if it was a clipper, using mainly the corners of it to ensure that we don't take the fade up higher than we need to. And go ahead and clean up any frizz with your trimmers. As you can see, I'm using my pinky as support. So yeah, just step back, look at them from the front, and clean up any frizz, guys. And then always ask your client what they want to do with their facial hair and eyebrows. And if you see any hair sticking out of the nose or ears, guys, just go ahead, take it that extra mile and remove that for them. And when clients usually have small cowlicks in their hairline, guys, I do like to use a product called Spritz. It is linked in the description below. It's basically just a hairspray to lock the hair in a forward position. And you could always use your blow dryer to speed up the process. But in this case, since I still got to clean up the facial hair, I'm just going to go ahead and let that dry as I do clean up the facial hair. Starting in the middle and moving my way to the side. And following that up with my electric shaver just to get a lot closer. And for the edge up, guys, I highly suggest again that you start from the middle, then work your way to one side. And then before you approach the other side, start from the middle again to recalibrate to make sure that you are going straight as possible, and then work your way to the other side. I personally like to expose my blade as much as possible using my Faded Culture matte razor. Again, link is in the description down below for these guys. Always start by shaving with the grain, then follow that by shaving against the grain, using your opposite hand to tug the skin just a bit to ensure a softer shave. And while I'm working on this side, I'm gonna go ahead and do his eyebrow. And then just repeat that same thing, guys. Again, just make sure that you are tugging the skin a bit with your opposite hand. Here, dusting them off, getting ready to put the hair enhancements and product. The link is in the description down below for this airbrush gun as well, guys. And I do dilute my hair dye with a bit of water. Applying a little bit of matte pomade to bring out some texture. And here is the before, guys, in case y'all forgot.